Yo, what is going on, everyone? It's GentooMan here, also known as Rainy, and in today's video, I wanted to talk about Imaginary. Now, Imaginary is directed by Jeff Wadlow and is Blumhouse's latest horror film to release in theaters. And Blumhouse is just coming off their streak of Five Nights at Freddy's and Night Swim, one movie that was a financial success, but not necessarily a critical success. And then I don't really think Night Swim was either a financial success or a critical success, but I didn't actually see that one, so I can't speak on it. But this is Blumhouse's latest film, and it follows a stepmother trying to get a better relationship with her two stepdaughters as they move into her old childhood home and start to have some complications with an imaginary friend named Chauncey. Now, I never know what to expect from Blumhouse movies. I really don't, because Blumhouse has released some really good horror movies, but at the same time, they have also released some really bad horror movies. So every time a new one comes out, it's always pretty much 50-50 what you're going to get. Now, starting off with the pros, I just got to say there's some very cool, very interesting visuals and ideas, I guess you could say, in the third act of this movie. Like, obviously, I don't want to get into spoilers here, but our main characters go somewhere, and that place that they go, there's some cool visuals and stuff like that, and that was definitely a highlight. They definitely could have then did play into the creep factor, the uncanny with this section. Again, I'm trying not to get into spoilers, and it's hard to describe it, but that was definitely the high point of the movie, was that whole section there. There was just some really creative visuals there that I really enjoyed. Another thing is the performances. I didn't find any of the performances to be particularly bad. I mean, I didn't find them to be fantastic by any means, but they weren't bad, and that's a good thing. When it comes to horror movies like this one, like a lot of the time, the main acting is not very good. And like, it wasn't great, but I thought it was good for the movie, if you know what I mean. And also just the idea behind the movie was pretty interesting. I like the whole angle of an imaginary friend, and there's a lot of things you can do with that when it comes to horror. So that alone was a good idea. And when I saw it in the trailer and read about the movie, it had me interested. Now, moving on to the cons, my biggest con about this movie is it just feels so samey. It just feels like we have seen this movie before, just in a different font. You know what I mean? This was one of my biggest complaints with 2023's The Boogeyman. Like, I enjoyed watching it. I would say I enjoyed The Boogeyman probably a little bit more than Imaginary, but it was the same thing with The Boogeyman. It wasn't a bad movie per se. It wasn't like a super great movie. It wasn't a super terrible movie, but it just felt like we had seen it before. It felt like there was no really new ideas. It was just a lot of the let's take this whole family affected by some sort of ghost or spirit or demon or presence or whatever it is, and just put a little different skin on it. It's like, oh, it's the world famous boogeyman this time, or oh, well, this time it's an imaginary friend, or whatever it's going to be. They all sort of feel like the same movie after a while. This sort of feeds into one of the pros I had, that the idea was really cool. I think it is. I think there's a lot of potential for a horror movie based around imaginary friends. But when you use that idea to make a movie that feels like it's been made so many times before, it's frustrating that nothing better was done with it. And moving into my final thoughts, I would say this movie is overall fine. I'd say it's probably a 4 out of 10 is probably what I'd put it. And I know that sounds probably worse than I'm letting off here, but this movie is just so fine, if you know what I mean. It's not doing anything particularly wrong. It's not doing anything that's making it a terrible movie, but it's also not doing anything that's making it a good movie. It's kind of just a movie that you watch to pass the time. If you like horror movies and you really want to see it, or if you really like horror movies and you like Blumhouse, or you really like some of the actors in this movie, then I think you can have a good night at the movies. If you go with someone that you can watch a sort of mediocre horror movie with, your friend, your significant other, whoever you want to go with, if you can go with them and you enjoy these types of movies, then you know what you're going to get, and then go for it, and I hope you enjoy it. But otherwise, if you're looking for an actual good horror movie, I'd say you could go ahead and skip this one. Blumhouse is definitely not my go-to for good horror nowadays. It just isn't. The indie horror scene is always going to be my go-to going forward, because Blumhouse just hasn't really put out anything that's wowed me over the past little bit, and Imaginary is no different. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. You all know the drill at this point. If you've seen Imaginary, let me know down in the comments what you thought of it. I'd love to hear your opinion, because my opinion is not the right opinion. It's just my opinion. Totally stole that line from Sean Chandler. Don't worry about it. But yeah, guys, it's 1:30 in the morning. I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. I just had to record a video first. So I'm out of here. I'll catch you all in the next one. Later.